Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We do hope you're keeping very, very safe and well. Thank you ever so much for joining us for, again, one of our Last Word on Spurs specials here as we look ahead to the start, of course, of the impending season on Last Word on Spurs. We have got a very, very special guest joining us. Back alongside us, we've got two of our regular guests on Last Word on Spurs. Not normally as smiley as what they would normally be, given what Spurs are doing to them so far this summer. Back with us on Last Word on Spurs. I'd like to have him back on the show. Look, he's Blues very, very young. We've got the wonderful Antony Costa back with us. Ant, how are you, bud?
How you doing, brother? You all right, boys?
Bad,
nice to see you. It's nice to be on. It's nice to be on a day where I don't know what we're going to be talking about, how it's going to go. But yeah, let's see what happens, mate. Look, you know, we love this club and it breaks my heart what's been happening at the moment.
Absolutely. And another man we have back on Last Word on Spurs always says it as it is. I think it's fair to say work commitments, life commitments, getting the obstacles sometimes to being able to do as many shows as he wants to do on Last Word on Spurs. I'd like to have Frank Major back on Last Word on Spurs. Frank, never a dull moment when you're on it for you, bud. How are you?
Good, thanks, Rick. Good to be back. Obviously, there is lots to discuss because it could be a very interesting week at Spurs, depending on what will. Obviously, we'll discuss this, but some news that we've heard earlier today. So good to be back, and hopefully we can try and be balanced here and shed some light on what's been happening at this great football club.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll most certainly do our best. Joining us imminently impending is former Spurs defender Ramon Vega, obviously a man that knows Ange Postecoglou quite well, obviously with his connections to Celtic and, of course, Tottenham Hotspur. So we're going to get forward Ramon's views on all things Tottenham right now. It's fair to say he never, ever shirks an opinion on Tottenham. So I think lots to discuss. And I know many out there, can I just say firstly, apologies for being late, have got a lot of anger and frustration right now towards the hierarchy of the football club. Many would say rightly so because of the lack, you'd say, of clarification and where Spurs are in terms of the summer transfer window. I think it's fair to say that we're in for an interesting couple of days to come. We know it appears, according to reports, Tottenham Hotspur hierarchy, Daniel Levy will meet with Bayern Munich officials on Monday, of course, to decide where we go on Harry Kane and if he will remain a Tottenham player or if he will go to Bayern Munich. I think it's fair to say that had we start with that subject, it would naturally take over and derail the show. So we will save that Harry Kane debate towards the end of this one. But guys, I am going to open up with what we've made of pre-season so far. I think it's fair to say with an interesting insight into Ange Postecoglou's football. We saw 30 shots on goal to the Hammers 4 in that opening game. We've seen Spurs out-press teams, out-pass teams. I think it's fair to say very hard to judge against the Lion City Sailors, the level of opposition given where they're coming from. But look, we can only judge what Spurs have done so far in pre-season. Let's start with you if we can, Anne. Look, a couple of games in. One, unfortunately, that was cancelled. What have you made of Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham in those couple of games that we've been exposed to so far?
Yeah, as you said in the intro just then, Rick, I think the football's been impressive from what I've seen. I didn't see all of the West Ham game because I was working, but what I did see, I really liked the pressing, the intensity of the players, and the fact that he's got them playing the football that we've all sort of grown up to love, and that's why we love our club. You know, we were the high pressing team, the entertaining team, and I think we are going to get that this season. I think the Lion City Sailors, please forgive me if I got that wrong. You can't really judge. You know, that did seem like a very much a pre-season game and get the fitness up for some of the players. And what I liked, I thought was brilliant. I thought he's got some of the players that we thought never had a future at this club playing again. Gio Lo Celso, I think he's really impressed. I don't think he's the finished article yet, but what I've seen, I think Ange is going to get a tune out of him, and the same with Perisic as well. So yeah, I mean, all in all, I'm really, really happy and looking forward to the season ahead. I just hope we get a good start. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's fair to say because of the nature of what's surrounding Tottenham at the moment, I think, you know, Ange Postecoglou, coming over to you, Frank, has been one man that's really given us some hope and optimism in the refreshing way of the communication. I think it's fair to say the last 3-4 years, I even go back further than that, we've been really, I would say, frustrated by a lack of communication from managers that have been in charge, that we don't actually know what's coming out of their mouth. It's all fairly cryptic. How would you say, Frank, from your perspective, you've felt about this current pre-season so far?
Well, on the communication side of things, I think Postecoglou's perhaps the best that we've had in recent years. He's brilliant with the media, the way he handles difficult questions. Do you want to do the introduction with Ramon? And then we'll come back?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We can do. Absolutely, we can do. Do you know what? I make everyone laugh. We've been afforded in these last 3-4 shows of having a bit of go at being late. So I'm going to firmly say it's delighting that I welcome to the last one on Spurs, a long time back from the first time he come on the show, former Tottenham Hotspur defender, over 64 appearances for the club, 7 goals as well. Ramon Vega's back on the last one on Spurs. Ramon, how are you?
Hi, Ricky. Sorry, I apologise for the delay. First of all, I've struggled technically to get involved. Can you hear me very well? With the
We've
Wi-Fi?
got you, my friend. Yeah, we've got you loud and clear. We got you.
Yeah, I needed to run. I come back from somewhere, trying to get installing Wi-Fi, everything, so...
It could be one of those nights. It could be one of those nights.
It's a bit like us trying to find a centre-back, coming in, coming out. Is he, isn't he?
Yeah. We're going to pre-warn you. It could be one of those nights. We will allow Ramon to try and adjust the Wi-Fi settings. Absolutely delighted to have Ramon Vega back on last one on Spurs. I must say, Ramon, of course, a man that Celtic is very close to his heart, as well as Tottenham. Will have really good views on Ange Postecoglou. Of course, a man that he knows very well, given his success at Celtic. Ramon, we are delighted to have you on last one on Spurs. I hope you can hear us out there.
I can hear very well, all of you guys.
We're looking forward to it, Ramon. We are. Before we come back round to Ramon, Frank, let's go back to you. You were saying there, from your perspective, pre-season wise, couple of games in, how would you judge from what you've seen so far from a Tottenham side under this new manager?
Well, in style of play, it's a complete sea change to what we've seen for the last 3 or 4 years. And to the fact that he's had them up until the last couple of games for 2.5 weeks, he seems to have put his stamp on things pretty quickly. We seem to have a new identity. It's more aggressive. We're playing further up the pitch. As Ant said, players that perhaps we'd written off may have another opportunity, Gio Lo Celso being one of them. Perhaps playing under the managers that he played under didn't suit his style of football. And I think many, including myself, have always thought there's a player there with Lo Celso. There's certainly quality there to play in an Argentinian team. And to what he'd done at Villarreal as well in the Champions League, playing in knockout phases of the Champions League on the big stage, showing his quality. So I've got a good feeling about Ange. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. I think it's going to take a bit of time, but we're going to see a new Spurs, certainly one we haven't seen for 4 years in terms of how we're going to sort of approach games. So, from that perspective, very positive. Regardless of the noise surrounding, which we'll get onto, the situation with the centre-backs, the Harry Kane conundrum and saga, I think that we are going to enjoy our football. And as I said, on the communication side of things, he's definitely a breath of fresh air. No more cows crossing roads, no more sort of misery, bipolar sort of communications that we've had from Jose and Conte. So yeah, refreshing, Rick, refreshing, and looking forward to seeing some attacking football back in North London in N17.
We hope so. Ramon, we've been pre-warned that your Wi-Fi could be like Spurs' search for a centre-back this summer. Pretty tough and frustrating, but worth giving it a go. So we will definitely try and do so. Ramon, look, it's a pleasure to have you back on last one on Spurs. I suppose it'd be keen to come over to you to get your initial thoughts on when Postecoglou was appointed, because it's a man you know very well, given your close connections to both Tottenham and Celtic, of course. What do you think, inside Spurs fans, what are we in for here for Postecoglou? Should we be excited about what's to come despite all of the issues we've got, of course, off the pitch at the moment?
Well, listen, off the pitch has been going on for the last, 6-7 months. I think the Conte saga and the moaning from him himself and how he left the club as well. Yes, some part it was honest, but the way he left from a professional manager, I don't think that's fair to say respect to the club. First of all, even the club was wrongly in many ways, and he was right. But I think you still need to be professional. Need to say that. Coming back to the question of Ange, as I say from the beginning, his top appointment. First of all, I don't think so anybody else will come for Spurs at this time, even young, talented, quality, name, whatever you call it. Spurs has a name in the moment in the industry where, as a manager, you want to go there, either you destroy yourself or you're very successful. So it's kind of either way. And the successful hasn't got a track record within Spurs for years, for a lot of reasons. We will come back to that in a minute as well. But in terms for the appointment of Ange has nothing to lose at Spurs. You know, at his age, what he's done at Celtic and other places as well, he's done a phenomenal job at Celtic. And Celtic is a massive club. When I'm telling you, a huge club, when I played there, it's massive. And it's always pressure as a manager to manage that club, because the Celtic, the one thing has been demanding is always either win the league or at least a double. And that's, you need to be year in, year out. And that's a big, big pressure there. Even you say the Scottish League, whatever it is, but that's pretty much every week you have a cup final pretty much as a game. For that point of view, I think he's definitely, without a doubt, the best choice at the best moment for Spurs, because Spurs was at the moment completely on the ground. They need to rebuild massively from manager piece, also the players as well. The other part where he definitely will bring in massively, you know, I think lots of people already start to realize, is the calmness and the relaxedness of himself as a personality. That's very important in the dressing room with the players. It comes across also as a father kind of way, mentality as well, where most of the players, young players within the dressing room, need it as well sometimes, you know. And psychologically, he's very, very strong and very stable. I think stability is one of the key part Spurs, i.e. dressing room, needs at this moment, especially with these last 7 months turbulence way of kind of season is gone, you know. Managers are gone. We don't know if Harry Kane goes. Are we going to qualify for Champions League or not? You know, so it's quite a lot of turbulence coming into. So he's definitely one of the guys who pretty much gives some stability and calmness, and that's very important when you rebuild something. You know, at the same time, he knows the challenge. When he gets when he Spurs, I think it's a huge challenge. But at the same time, if he's doing well, he will come out as a hero.
Can I ask you, Ramon, to stick with you, and I'll ask the boys this as well. Ramon, I've been of the opinion that ultimately for Tottenham, when you look at Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte, they had two guys in there that were serial winners, and that Spurs generally felt that they were going to be in a trajectory where they were going to hopefully challenge at some point for a Premier League and also win cups. And of course, be in a position where the club was going to be in a better position as to whoever took it on next. With Postecoglou, and given the fact that he's had to really, you'd say, fight through his managerial journey for every opportunity, I'm really intrigued to know from you, do you think that he will get sufficient enough backing from the board? Because I have been on the opinion that if they were only going to give Jose and Antonio so much to some degree, is Postecoglou going to be really given as much as them, if not more, to be able to succeed? And that's where I'm really, really unsure right now. When you see the amount of frustration and anger across social media with Spurs fans towards the hierarchy, do you think he's going to suffer falls in that boardroom? How do you feel?
Well, listen, the boardroom without Sam has to ask himself many, many, many questions. You know, I think they can't get away with kind of, they're not their fault. It's many decisions been made in the board, and many decisions been made in recruitment side point of view as a disaster. With that, we know that it's been an absolutely disaster, the recruitment side point of view. So the board, without that, has to really consider, if they're really appointing Ange, it's not just appointing Ange just for the sake of having a manager. It's really to have a kind of a plan in place around him, and you don't have a better opportunity now with Ange as such a manager to actually build something around. The luck for Spurs, they really find a manager. First of all, he speaks proper English, everybody understands well. So in the press, everybody really comes across well. That's very important. It's not because foreign managers are different or not. It's just because the English language is dominating in the Premier League, and it's very important for the kind of communication point of view. You come across well, and I think that's something was missing with Conte. Yes, he might right, but I don't think he came across well, because sometimes his English was not as perfect, let's say, in that point of view, and sometimes maybe misunderstood. But that's something I think from Ange comes across well, and that calms quite a lot of people, I think, in terms of Spurs fans. But at the same time, we know football, it's all done on the pitch. So he has to really prove now on the pitch. But from the board point of view, they have now opportunity.
We will get him back. We most certainly will. Frank, we've got a question to you along the similar lines here. Question of Frank, is he optimistic we can succeed with Daniel Levy in charge of the football club? Where do you stand right now on that, Frank, for you?
Well, this is the conundrum and the difficulties that we have at Spurs, because ultimately whoever's in charge, the sufficient backing hasn't happened to any manager under this ownership. It hasn't. We don't. Again, I don't want to come on this show, and pretty much every other time at least now that I come on here, we talk about the same things, which are we don't buy world-class players in their prime. We don't buy first choices. We end up with second or third choices, and then what happens? Because lots of those choices fail to succeed, we end up trying to replace them with other cheaper choices. We spoke, Lee and I, didn't we, in the group a couple of days ago? The amount of money we've spent on replacing Kyle Walker is now nearly £150 million. When at the time when Walker went, instead of just buying a proper replacement, instead of a budget replacement or the second or third choice, it always comes back to this conversation, Rick. So I think my expectations have been reset. I know that this is a complete rebuild, and we're on a journey. The issue with that is we don't price that accordingly for the fans. Ticket prices have gone up 20%. We haven't got European football. We haven't signed any centre backs. We've got this manager who's a fantastic communicator. I think he's very grateful to be at Spurs, which wasn't the case with Jose and Conte. It always felt like we were doing them a favour. But if we don't back this manager and give him the tools to succeed, particularly with the centre-back situation. I mean, it seems that Harry Kane's going this week. We've had these discussions. I think that's done. So we have to spend the money wisely. And the issue is when we have spent money in the past, because I think over the last 5 years, are we the fifth highest spenders in the Premier League? Is it fourth or fifth? Fifth. Yep. Unfortunately, again, it goes back to instead of making the signings to replace the players that have been missing or have been sold, the Jan Vertonghen's, the Moussa Dembele's, we don't seem to do that properly for the reasons I've just mentioned. So I think, without getting off topic, I think ENIC have done lots of good for this club, particularly from the infrastructure perspective. But I think a lot of their on-field decisions have been awful. They're terrible communicators. They're not transparent enough with the fans. They don't communicate frequently enough and often enough. They make decisions without engaging with the fans, which is ridiculous. And I think they've taken the club as far as that they can take it. I think now it's time for them to sell and give it to someone who's going to take us up to the next level, because I just don't feel that we're going to go to that level of regularly competing for the Premier League and winning trophies with them in charge of this football club.
And let me come over to you, then we'll get Ramon's point there, what we're about to finish there. And it is a difficult time right now for the club. I mean, look, you've been a fan for, I don't want to reveal how many years, God, you can tell us that yourself. But, do you know a time in which it is this toxic around the club's fan base at the moment, in which you just feel at the moment, we should be going into a season really looking forward to it. And yet we've got a new manager who is, I believe, as we've said, a really good communicator, a man that has shown himself, I think, as Ramon has alluded to be very clear, consistent in terms of the message to us. It's just a shame that it doesn't seem as an alignment across all parts of the football club, right?
It's just a weird time, Rick. Sorry, Ramon, go on, mate.
Yeah, Rick, the one thing I need to say, in terms of the fans, supporters, I think the fans are more than for that for a long, long time. This is something that's been accumulated for years now, guys. This is not something coming few months, few weeks. This has been accumulating for years and years and years and years. There was, and the Spurs fans, the minute is a little bit kind of 3-4 weeks of win and everything is kind of the hope came in place, but that's not sufficient for the club of Spurs, And then suddenly it's got slap. It's my hotel. It's been room service, by the way.
I thought as Daniel say, cut it.
I went to Dubai in the holiday. What can you say, Now, just getting back to Spurs supporters. Listen, in one stage, I really, really, really feel sorry for these guys. First of all, they're paying a hell of a lot of money for their tickets, Now, I think they increased outrageous the ticket price up when the living kind of expenses in the UK, well, not just in the UK, everywhere, it's absolutely enormous. The one thing at least the club can be social about it and make sure that that side is either frozen or at least a discount, because of these families with these kids, they go over the hurdles just to pay these tickets, and to increase that price, that's a huge burden for all these supporters. So that's another pressure for the club to actually succeed. So they're doing themselves not major favor. If at least on the pocket are not being heard from the fans, well, the fans at least can understand, you know what? Okay, I can accept that. I'm not going to pay thousands of pounds. I'm paying God knows whatever, So that's also a point you need to address with the board. We need to look into it. Number two, they have to address all the 4 or 5 years. Yes, they've done it very well from the infrastructure point of view, but a lot of clubs I see around Europe, they're doing it. There's nothing new, nothing kind of exceptional. Yes, it was nice because I still like the old White Hart Lane, to be honest with you. I went there. So atmosphere White Hart Lane is for me still the best support in terms of fan and everything. Even when I was going in a period, it was also very bad, you remember. But I still loved it because the fans were still behind. I went to the new stadium. Goodness me, I was shocked.
Nothing screams Tottenham, Ramon. Nothing screams Tottenham when you go to the new stadium.
I think the identity for Spurs has been gone as well for years.
Completely.
I think this is the identity with the fans, and the communication with the fans is awful. It's terrible. If I see all the clubs, how they're engaging with the fans, how they supporting the fans in various ways, okay? Yes, they're doing some part a little bit, but the communication with the majority of the supporters is absolutely dreadful. And this is one of the most important parts as a club responsibility. You need to treat, not as a client, they are fans. They need to feel they're part of the family, they're part of the club. That's why they're going week in, week out. They're paying as much as money. And actually, they would pay much more money if you treat them well. It's very simple. It's not hindsight, to be honest. It's not complicated. It's very simple kind of treatment. You want to be treated well. If you treat it well, you're coming back. If not, I'm not coming back. Simple as that.
Yeah. But they play on loyalty, Ramon, because football clubs operate like no other business in the sense that if you get a bad service, if your bank, for instance, treated you the way that Spurs have treated us, you just close your account. But it's the loyalty that they manipulate and leverage to their advantage, because it's in you, isn't it? You support one club, and if you're a passionate football fan, that won't change. And going back to what you said about the increases,
you can't just go, I'm upset. Sorry, Fred. You can't just say, well, I don't like the way Tottenham's run. I'm going to go and support someone. You can't do that. It's in our blood. Exactly, that's what I mean. So it's
it was so easy. It was so easy. We wouldn't have loyal fans up and down. The main thing about this football or the sports is you've got fans built up and loyal in every single village and every single city around up and down in the country. The reason why they're associated for their local, of course, not all of them are Tottenham live around there, but North London in that area, but. It's because association to the North London club makes you important. You feel you're part of something. In this, I don't feel this at Tottenham anymore. And I think the fans starts to feel it that. And that distance is so far now, you need a hell of a lot of work to get these guys back. Because if you have that done properly, even you going so badly on the pitch, the support will be there. I know that. The Spurs supporters will be behind. They might moan, as always. We know that. But that's the part of Spurs fans.
We love it.
That will be there. That will be there. But if you're not even giving that kind of sympathy, they're actually part of this club. Because that's what I will say. It's the sympathy and the kind of that you're part of these. The fan doesn't care. He will say, sod off. I'm sorry. I'm not part of this.
I think the frustration as well is, Peeps, is the fact that when the season ended, okay, we didn't qualify for Europe, no Europa League conference, X, Y, and Z. Okay, park that now. Look at the new season, okay? You've got your star striker, the greatest ever player I've probably seen, most people have seen, breaking records, left, right, centre, unbelievable. Got us out of so many holes over the years, right? Park that a second. We conceded 63 goals last season. Okay, so the main focus should be from July the 1st, we need centre-backs. We need to go and get 2 or 3 centre-backs and sell the players that conceded, that were part of the problem, that conceded 63 years goals. We've got players combined, been there for 28, 29 years as a combined. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. I'm sorry, loyalty and, but he runs for... No, it's done. Like, move on now. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a new era. It's the Ange era. Go and get the 2 centre-backs that he wants, and we can kick on as well. Like, I'm not going to have, but we're going to sign a centre-back next week. It's 1 week. It's 4 weeks too late. It's 4 weeks too late. We should have got a centre-back.
We needed one in then. We needed at least... We need 2, but we needed one in who was going to start with Romero a week or 2 ago to give them time. Ramon, you're a centre-back. You know what it's like. You have to have... No, but I'm saying, you know what it's like. You have to build a relationship with a new goalkeeper who hasn't played with Romero, and then we're going to have another centre-back who will start with Romero. So 3 players at the heart of your defence who don't know each other, they're strangers. And Ramon, you know more than anyone, you have to build that relationship.
It would take at least 2 to 3 months.
Exactly.
Just to really
Exactly.
Just from the technical point of view, I would say 70-80% you might match straight away, but they still have got that 30% where, first of all, you're a new team, and if you're a foreigner, you have to come to a new country. It takes always time to anybody, wherever you go. If English guy goes abroad, it's the same thing. It takes 1 or 2 months to adapt to the normal to life, to whatever it's in London, etc. So anybody comes to a new club, it needs at least 2 to 3 months to adapt to the environment, to the dressing room, to the players he plays with, etc. And then you as a centre back, who is kind of key in the back. You always either play the one with left or right, or the left back or right back. These are the key where you start to really kind of train on a daily basis. It would take at least 2 months. And the most important part is the training. It's not the training session on the day. It's the games. The games is the real test. That's where you start to understand each other or not. Where you start to make mistakes. You start to know his weakness, his strength, because that's where you only learn it then in the game. In the training session, yes, you can learn it, but the game is the key factor. It's the kind of the test you're doing. And the problem is the real tests are the Premier Leagues, and these are week in, week out. So you will take about at least 6 to 8 weeks until you really tune in. And then the team has to also play well together, because that's also a big factor. It's not just you as a defender, everybody else within the team around you, because you're 11 players, you're not just you or one player. Everybody else has to play or smooth in and try to be a team. So that will take also a while.
But they should have.
But for them to not have, for them to not have one pre-season game together, which is looking to be apparent, is ridiculous.
Frank, so go back in terms of, absolutely agree with you and Anthony. In terms of, and I've been saying this for weeks and months, and I repeat myself again, the recruitment at Spurs is absolutely dreadful for the last 3 to 4 years. It was not yet now, the last 3 or 4 years. That could hide for a while because there was a nice little kind of phase. We qualified for the Champions League. Wonderful, fantastic. So everybody was shut up. We all happy we in the Champions League. But the core, the main issue within the club was still sitting there just to explode. What happened? Last season, that's what happened. They couldn't hide anymore. Everything came out to the truth. The truth really came out there, but too late. But react on this 3 to 4 years, not really recruiting properly, and doing this maybe in 1 month or 2 months. I'll tell you that now, from knowledge, it's close to impossible. Either you can spend as much as you want, not even then, because you've got the FFP scenario in place as well, so you can't really spend as much as you want. But even there, you have an issue, because you have to buy really the quality centre back, but you need to already have a year, if not 2, knowing which centre back you want to have, not the month before. 2, at least 2 years. 2 years. I've been working with clubs, big clubs. They're monitoring some of the centre backs and striker big man. Nearly 3 years, guys. 3 years. When I'm saying 3 years, and then happy to spend 40, 50 million, 60 million. But I know everything about this player, from the family, from his psychological level point of view, from his technical point of view, when he's down, when he's not having a good period, all of that, he got all that data by 3 years, not 1 month, or not by an agent calling you up. Oh, listen, I got a good centre back. It would be great for you. Do you know what I mean? It's something really constructive, and this is what I've been missing at Spurs. A lot of other clubs are well in advance in this. That's why they can take some quality players in the transfer period, because they're not started in May or in April or in March. They started 2 years ago, guys. They've been there with them. They've been monitoring them, and the players knows that they've been monitoring. So if a player knows, let me just give you a kind of example. I'm a centre back. I've been playing in Switzerland, let's say. Okay, but if I know Spurs have been monitoring for the last year, 2 years, all my games, including my national team, and they maybe want to see me, one of the scouts wants to see me, wants to talk to me. For me, it's very important. That means the club is very interested at me. He's really he wants to know who is Ramon Vega, first of all, but he also comes to the games, even the smallest league game at Switzerland, but he comes to watch it. And that's very, very important. And if the player knows that, when decision makings come into it from different clubs, he will say, I'm going to Arsenal, I'm going to Manchester City, because these guys have been 3 years, pretty much, looking after me or checking me out how I am. Yeah. That makes a big difference in the transfer period.
I get it.
Ramon, can I ask you, because we are going to go for a break in a second. And do you want to come in there? Sorry, do you want to come in
there?
there?
Yeah, no, I was going to come to what Ramon was saying. So, it took us 70 days to appoint a manager, okay? But my point is, what I was trying to explain, and obviously you explained it, was, do you think the planning is bad? Is not good at Spurs? The planning's not great at all. If I'm doing a tour next year with the boys, I'm planning from September. We're going to look at the budget. Do you know what I'm saying? You start planning now. Now they know that we shipped 63 goals come the end of that season. We need centre backs. So why wasn't it in the realm to start looking and get them centre backs in for the new manager for pre-season? We're 2 weeks away.
I'll give you an example, Antony. I know why. Yeah. I'm telling you now already. I'll give you what the answer is. With Antony Conte, we knew already, or pretty much they knew already, most likely it's going to go. So in January, already the backing, you can see there was not major. In January market, anywhere an awful market to start with, okay? In January. That's kind of emergency situation. Yeah. But when you already as a board, you don't know if you're going to stick to Conte or you're going to get rid of. You don't know who's going to be next. Most likely, a club with a reputation to come to you would be very, very difficult to come, because you know as well, if Conte, if Mourinho, these guys, not done at Spurs. How the heck me, young, talented, potentially, I'm German, everything else, why should I ruin my reputation somewhere where potentially I don't need to at the moment? Maybe when I'm 58, 60 plus, whatever, I have nothing to lose, I might come in, Yeah. But not when you're 35 or maybe 45 in this case, where you still are top Real Madrid, potentially PSG or Bayern Munich kind of level, because that's what they're looking for it, Nobody will come. That's just sheer reputation level point of view, on sporting point of decision making from the manager's point of view. So it's very difficult to convince the guy. If it was a sporting director of Spurs, it would be very, very difficult to convince him. What am I going to say? What do I sell? How do I sell Spurs? What, money?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't say I can give him money on like Manchester City and all these other guys. So that would be impossible to say. So that goes to the side. So you tell me, how are you going to sell and make Spurs attractive? New stadium, new academy, all nice, beautiful, great. Is that will sell it? Would you go? Put yourself in the position. Would you go? Put Spurs heart away. Would you go?
Yeah. No, I don't think I would. I don't would.
Frank, can I ask you just so we can on this subject? So we're going to try and obviously bring us a little bit back on track. Frank, I want to know from you, how do you think Ange Postecoglou is feeling right now about the business that's been done so far? Do you think he would be still fairly optimistic? Put yourself in his shoes at the moment. We've got a week coming up where I think many of us know it could be a week in which we're about to potentially let go the all-time greatest goal scorer the club's seen in Harry Kane. How's Ange Postecoglou feeling at the moment? Before I also ask Ramon that same question.
Well, I don't know, because we don't know what Levy told him when he came in and got the job regarding Kane, regarding the centre-backs recruitment. Obviously, where is Scott Munn, as people in the comments are rightly saying. We don't have a director of football. Paratici is obviously, apparently, in the background, still advising the club. So it's a very good question, Rick. I think he's happy. I'd certainly be happy with parts of the squad. In certain sections of the squad, we have got the strength there. But again, if you have a new goalkeeper and you need new centre-backs and they're still not in place, and the season is a couple of weeks away, and it's looking very likely this week that we're about to sell our star striker, the only bona fide world-class player that we have in the squad, the talisman, I can imagine there's parts of frustration that he's feeling at the moment. I mean, if we are waiting for the Kane money before we're buying the two centre-backs that apparently are coming, then that's shocking, because we were told that the stadium was going to be a game changer, the revenues it generated, we're going to go straight back into the club and recruitment, etc. We're well past the pandemic now. So that should be the case. So again, Rick, we don't know what he was told. We don't. It's very cloak and dagger at the top at Spurs. We never know, do we?
Well, Frank, this is exactly what I'll be saying in terms of communication with the club. You know, if the club will communicate with the fans, but in a honest manner, because you can't have the in and outs of the board, because that's discretionary. They're not allowed, you know. But at least in a very straight, honest way, I think the fans will have certain sympathy. Well, that's what it is, you know. But the problem is we are all guessing here. We all kind of say, yes, maybe, potentially goes. We might replace it if he only sells, all of that. We know most likely he plays a game that if he sells Kane, with that he has money to replace either a striker, because he has to replace him. But definitely a centre-back is needed, because Ange definitely needs at least 1 to 2 to add on. And I think Ange is definitely frustrated at the moment, because he wants to have them prepare at the pre-season, like any single manager wants to have that. I would have, because then I know he can integrate, he can potentially make some certain mistakes, whatever he has, he can correct him, you know. But, you know, coming in already starting the season, potentially mid-season, in August, end of August, it's a very difficult one. But at the same time, I will also say Ange is very flexible. He's been in situations like that. Ange can handle with limited budgets as well, teams, you know, and he's still done very well. So that's a very good news as well. So we need to, he's not a kind of, let's call it, the Conte was literally kind of get rams out, you know, when he didn't get what he wanted, you know, whatever, you know, if he didn't get his Ferrari, he would just walk out kind of scenario. Ange is a completely different personality. He is more humble. He comes out more kind of realistic across, and that will also make something the Spurs fans needs to be kind of look in the mirror. We need to be realistic. What kind of club are we at the moment? Okay, because everybody thinks we are a major club. Yes, we can think like that, but we're not acting like that at all whatsoever.
Ramon, on this point of Postecoglou, because you made some really good points that I wanted to bring up and ask you. You obviously know him very well from your days, obviously connections at Celtic. I think it's fair to say he didn't have the most best and quicker start at Celtic. How important will it be that the fans are patient and remain behind him at the start of which we've called a project, a rebuild, a restart? How difficult do you see those early days? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he won 3 out of his first 8 when he was Celtic manager and crashed out of the Champions League. And we're sitting here saying that already he's got to have at least a couple of centre-backs come in to enhance and improve this squad. He may lose Harry Kane as well. How important will it be fans are patient? And how do you expect those first couple of weeks, first month or two to play out?
Well, let me just kind of clarify that. I think the Spurs fans needs to be extremely patient, because they're not coming from on a track record, massive track record and spoiled track record. They can actually say, well, listen, we've been doing for years, you know, winning the League Cup and you name it, kind of, you know. No, we've not been doing anything, frankly saying. Last season was the worst, with one of the top apparently manager in the world. So now we think about it, not giving him a chance for the next 1, 2, or I would say nearly 3 or 4 months. because that's what is really needed, to be honest with you, especially now with certain delays of centre.
We got centre backs, which we obviously know there is a certain delay for sure. Ramon sounds like he's going to come back in there. We are going to get Ramon back in just a second. It's a good time to say thank you so much for listening, downloading to us wherever you've been. We've got over 1,400 of you watching us live here on this last one on Spurs. We're joined by the brilliant Frankie Major, the superb Antony Costa, and the brilliant Ramon Vega, former Spurs defender, giving us some insights into maybe what to expect.
I want to ask, is Ramon back? Oh,
Ramon back in a second. Yeah, what to expect.
I want to ask him how the dressing room was when Teddy left to go United back in 99.
Yeah, of course.
I'd like to get his thoughts on that. If Kane does leave.
Yeah, of course.
Week.
I think the only person who would be happy with Kane leaving is Richarlison. That's the only person in the squad. Yeah, he would be. Of course he would be.
Boys, before I do come on to Harry, in which we're obviously going to make that probably the next topic of the show, before I do, look, of course, we've discussed about this centre-back search. Ramon, let me just let you finish your point there before I come back in. Ramon, do you want to finish your point there? Sorry.
Yes, no, just going back in terms of the fans' expectation of and patience to Ange, I think going back, the track record is definitely awful in terms of what Spurs have been doing. So, therefore, Ange not giving the chance or the opportunity for the next 3 months, it will be a completely failure for the Spurs fans to do that, because it's not Ange, in this case, major fault, because he's picking up a club where he needs to rebuild, bring some confidence into it, bring some calmness in the dressing room, and also on top of that, start to play well. With one thing for certain, you will guys can see, Ange is a very offensive playing manager. He's done that at Celtic superbly. Yes, it took 2-3 months because at that time he didn't have all the players in. But when these Japanese strikers coming in, I said everything changed within the whole squad there. So Ange, without a doubt, will bring calmness. That means he will also need that calmness from the fans in supporting the next 2-3 months. Because once he feels that the supporters are behind as well, he will also transfer this to the dressing room, and the dressing room will then transfer this on the pitch. So it's very important now the supporters, I know, and I feel with them, for a long time, having nothing, but at least something we might are looking forward. There's some good offensive, good playing football he will bring into it. But without a doubt, he needs to have centre-backs.
It's interesting, isn't it? Daniel Levy in the summer said, we shall spend the period ahead of next season working relentlessly to position our club for on-pitch success and football you will love to come and watch. Every element of the club's operation is geared towards delivering that. Daniel Levy using that word relentlessly. I think everybody's feeling at the moment in terms of that centre-back search would be anything but that word. I think again, Frank, coming over to you, what I find again is quite staggering is that since 2017, Spurs have signed just 2 permanent central defenders for a combined fee of 53.5 million, Christian Romero and Joe Rodon. That's despite losing Toby Alderweireld and Jan Vertonghen in that time. And you just wonder, that's probably why we do leak the goals. Well, I think that
for 3 years.
I think that just sums it up, doesn't it? I mean, you look at the fact of where we are defensively. I just wonder, Frank, again, where we are right now, Edmond Tapsoba, of course, is one of those prominent centre-back Spurs have been linked with. Director of Sport at Bayer Leverkusen, Simon Rolfs, has rejected that potential sale. He says, no, not under normal circumstances we look to be selling. It's clear that at some point there are always limits. But we understand here that Bayer Leverkusen are looking for an offer in excess of 50 million to change their stance. And at present, we understand Wolfsburg left-sided central defender Micky Van de Ven, another prominent Spurs target. Again, we understand there's been no movement on that, and the clubs are not close, as we recalled, to that potential signing. Do you expect, Frank, that to potentially change, and what we're going to discuss in a second, be it Harry Kane? Do you expect that to
possibly? I think they're waiting for the Harry Kane sale money to come in before they're going to buy the centre backs. I've just got a feeling, but I mean, going back to the Joe Rodon situation, he was third choice. If you remember, Milan Skriniar was first choice. I think there was someone else mentioned. And it goes back to what we were saying earlier on the show, that we buy these third or fourth choice players and they don't end up playing for us. And you think it's insane. And you can't even get a game out on Rennes on loan. And you think, do they not learn the lessons? Do they not learn these lessons? It's rinse, repeat. It's just Groundhog Day. And again, what compounds that and exacerbates the problem is the fact that top line inflation in the UK peaked at around 11% on the consumer price index, and they put prices up by 20%. I mean, how does that factor in? They don't have at certain times when making decisions any kind of idea. They don't read the mood of the fan base and understand.
Frank, it's called empathy. They haven't got empathy. That's the problem we have, and that's the major issue I see here. The empathy doesn't come into consideration. The connection with the fans is completely gone.
There's no connection, Ramon. There's no connection between the board and the fan base, and obviously that unfortunately filters down to the team and the performances on the pitch, which is why we had the season we had last season.
Listen, I'm an ex-player. When I come to the club, I've been treated completely not like an ex-player. I'm just giving you kind of very frank the way it is. Sometimes completely like I never played there. I need to even beg for the bloody.
And you. Ramon, and you won a trophy. This is not a club that's won many trophies. You won a trophy, Ramon, for the football club.
I can see. I can wear the trophy. I can hang my trophy. I can polish my trophy. Some of these guys can't even do that. But at the same time, ex-players are not being treated well at Spurs. And you can talk to any single ex-player, and that's the facts. And this is the kind of the problem what also goes with the fans. So the fans, the same thing. So I see it as a player, ex-player, you're not being treated as well or welcoming. The fan is exactly the same scenario. And why now the prices, Frank, you're saying, what I cannot understand, why they're doing the tickets prices up now, especially now when everybody's struggling. And that's where the empathy is not coming into it. And there's no connection with the fans. They're just saying, okay, they're going to pay anyway. That's what they're thinking like that. But that's gone. They will actually kind of get rid of a lot of supporters, and you will have maybe potentially tourist supporters there. We don't want to have that. We want to have proper Spurs supporters coming into it. But you're not going to treat them like a full side there. You need to actually treat them well. And if now everybody's struggling, and on top of that, it's not like in the past, the tickets was the major revenue stream at the club. That TV rights and everything else is way much bigger. You're talking a small percentage of ticket revenues. So for them to increase by 20%, it's insane to do that in the right moment.
It is insane.
It's insane. And I will say that if the board doesn't consider that, I'm telling you as an ex-player, it's actually criminal nearly, I would call it, to do that, because that's not fair for all this family who potentially have also the kids to see that they can't renew the season ticket or even buy the tickets. It's impossible. So it's a tourist club. Only the tourists who only for a weekend will come in. They will pay a couple £100, no problem, but they'd only spend it for the weekend. But the guys, North London, were coming up and down or whatever from England. They're spending lots of money just traveling, hotel to come to London, stay the weekend there, and paying the extra ticket. Guys, let's be realistic.
Yeah. It's the detachment from the working class fan, isn't it? And yeah, that's wrong. The way they went about that as well, they just sort of shoved it through the back door.
Well, Frank, I feel sometimes Spurs is not working class fans anymore. They're not moaning. They say, well, I pay for that. That's why I feel a little bit sometimes, I feel that we need to come back that the fan is appreciated in many, many ways, okay? If at least the tickets prices could be frozen or at least discounted or deferred, whatever the possibilities within the economics, the club can do it. Because I'm telling you now, it could be done. This is not an issue there because there's not the major kind of revenue stream at the club. They have way much bigger. Yes, they don't have Champions League anymore. They don't have that anymore. Yes, okay, they have to look now for the next 20, 30, 40 million. They're not getting last year. We're not doing 20% increase on tickets. You're not getting that 25 million. It's impossible. You're actually denying the fan to come to the stadium and the families.
Can I just say one thing, guys, before I come to Anne? Because I think it's problem that I do mention this. Coming in from Mike, who says, come on, Ricky, grow a backbone. What you got to lose, call Levy the fraud out. I have said on numerous shows and consistently that something has to change at board level. It can't remain the same because ultimately I don't feel Tottenham Hotspur will be successful. What I would say to this point is, again, and I'm not trying to be unpopular here by saying this, that everybody has their own right in terms of what they feel comfortable for them is to calling out the board. Some feel they want to go and stand and protest. And again, I admire that want to do that. We've never said, and no one on the show has ever said that should not be a way in which you would want to do things. I think Crackers, bless him, Crackers stood there with the protesters not too long ago and said a lot of really, really nice people that just want their Tottenham back. I think we've said before that going to football in general is so expensive now, even before the hike of the match day ticket prices. So everybody has got a right to do what they want to do, as long as there's no violence, as long as it's not harming people. Everybody has their right to do what they feel possible is right for them when it comes to protesting, whether that be in-game, after game, however that wants to be done. My point on protesting has always been, just for me, I don't want it to detract when we're actually playing the game. Because when we're playing the game, I think we all should be together and supporting the team and supporting the manager. Now, we've all said here, and again, Ramon, you allude to the fact that, look, Ange Postecoglou has walked into this. He's not wanted for this situation. He's walked into a job which I'm sure he's delighted in terms of he's got it. And, you know, I just wonder, do you think Ramon, in any way at the moment, it's difficult to say this and ask this, but do you think he would have known exactly the situation before he would have taken the job? Or do you think already, just again, it's hypothetical because we don't know this for sure. Do you think goalposts are being moved, Ramon? What do you think?
No. Listen, from Ange's point of view, I think, as I said at the beginning of the show, but Ange has zero to lose. He's an age, an opportunity to can actually manage a Premier League to start with, okay? He's not 41, he's not 39, he's not 45, he's 58 plus in the moment, you know. He's managed some very good teams in Australia, and Celtic on top of that, done very well. For him, this is just an opportunity where he can't lose. He can't lose. As simple as that. Whatever he will do, he can't lose. So, but in the same time, for Spurs, it's a great opportunity to have, or let's say great opportunity, luck that we have such a manager at Spurs, because he will bring calmness, he will bring tranquility, and also, very important point of view, but you can rebuild around him even in a low budget, because he's not the one guy who will say, well, I need 500 million to do the whole thing, you know, like the other two kind of managers that previously had who done nothing in the same time, you know. So we need to be humble about it. We need to come down to the ground again. We need to be realistic about it. And I think he's the character to do that, because he can actually deal with such a situation. And you can see now already, and I'm very happy already when he comes across in the media, the calmness and the way he speaks, the way he communicates. It's very important. That comes across to the players the same thing, because that is very important when the game starts or during the training session. When you have a manager like that, really kind of gives you that calmness, you can actually focus on your game. And that's very important, not in the relationship with the manager and you. It's already the authority, but it gives you also the calmness and also the kind of the way of that you're free to play. And that, what I felt last year is with Conte, he didn't give them freedom, these players. He was like kind of very strict about, oh, that's the only thing you can do, that's the only position you can do. He doesn't let them play. Hence, we didn't have very, very good games and fluent games in terms of attractive games with Conte at all, whatsoever. It was actually boring, point of view, you know? So, in the same time, that's what I think with Ange, we will definitely have a very good opportunity. And I think Spurs fans should really, really look into it and support him. And again, Daniel Levy and the board really has to support him as well.
Absolutely. What we are going to do, guys, that we are going to go for our final break of this show. But before we do, just on obviously the centre-back update, we understand Monaco and Fulham are close to an agreement for a reported Tottenham target in Tosin Adarabioyo. They're dropping off like flies here, aren't they, at the moment? We obviously will see what Spurs do in terms of that centre-back search. We know Spurs are open to offers for Davinson Sanchez, Joe Rodon, Japhet Tanganga. We also understand Clement Longley remains a defensive option between now and the end of this summer transfer window. I think that, again, there's not much change. It would be unfair to talk any more about where Spurs' centre-back search is, other than the fact that, of course, we do need to get a couple in. Now, I think it's fair to say that this man could be potentially linked to players coming into the football club in that notion of centre-backs. and that is Harry Kane. So that is where we're going to turn our attention to next. We've got over 1,400 of you watching us live here. Thank you so much for all of your incredible support for Last One Spurs. We're joined by the brilliant Frank Major, the superb Antony Costa, and returning former Tottenham Hotspur defender Ramon Vega, telling it as it is really on this Last One Spurs. Lots of people loving Ramon's opinions as to what is going on at the football club. Guys, this is probably the conversation that none of us really wanted to have. Ramon, I've heard you on Sky many a time talk about this man, of course, the poster boy of the football club, Harry Kane. Now, I think it's fair to say, according to reports, Harry Kane is close to what is being described as a historic deal to join Bayern Munich. We know there's going to be a meeting on Monday, as things stand, between Bayern CEO Jan-Christian Dreesen, technical director Marco Neppe, and Tottenham Hotspur chairman Daniel Levy. And if talks do go well, we expect Harry Kane to be a Bayern Munich player. I never thought I'd be saying that on Last One on Spurs. Ramon, give me your immediate reaction to that. Harry Kane leaving Tottenham for Bayern Munich. Can you believe I'm saying that to you?
Well, I believe that because I think Daniel Levy's put him in a position now, in a very difficult position, not in a strong position at the same time. So you got one of the best striker in the Premier League with historically scoring God knows how many as such. And most likely he might leave for free in January. So when you're in a position there as a chairman and you don't want to sign a new contract in the same time, it's not question mark. You have to sell it. As simple as that. And of course, Bayern Munich is the one comes into it. And at the same time, I also say, Bayern Munich is a very, very big club. Massive club. I'm telling you that now. And a well-organized club. And he would definitely like it. There's not even a question mark. And he would definitely win something. That's for certain with Bayern Munich. That's one thing you can have there. But in terms from Spurs' point of view, there's not even a question mark. If Harry Kane does not want to renew, from Daniel Levy's point of view, he has to get the maximum money out of the player because that's the only thing he can do now. Unfortunately, that's the situation he got himself into it. He could actually last year already or 2 years ago extend that the contract, but he didn't want to. At that time, I think Manchester City was trying to potentially lure him to Manchester City, but Daniel Levy doesn't want to sell him to a Premier League club. He wants to do it abroad. And Bayern Munich is that option, and he's 30 years old. They want to pay that kind of level of money. I'll tell you that now. So it's the only time for Daniel to really cash in. If he doesn't sign him in, can sign, then he has to cash it in. Unfortunately, that's the reality. In the same time, yes, he's done fantastically for the club. There's no doubt. I think every Spurs fan is happy with what he's done, and he will be remembered as a major legend forever, I would say. But at the same time, Harry Kane is not the Tottenham Hotspurs. Simple as that. Spurs will go on and go on and go on without Harry Kane or with Harry Kane. So we need to start to think about without Harry Kane in the future.
Frank, let me come to you. And when I do come to you, I'm going to ask Ant to come in afterwards. I've just got to grab my son from the car, in which is absolutely hailing down here in the UK. Weather is absolutely horrendous. Frank, I'm going to come to you and ask you, look, plenty of people behind the scenes, we understand, have been really irked by the way in which Bayern have made this approach for Harry and how bullish they've been in the media, both in Germany and, of course, how the UK press have also picked up on it. And we understand that Spurs don't want to lose their all-time goal scorer, but do face the prospect of losing him for free next summer. So the question I want to ask both you and Ant, you can follow on after this. Frank, is this the right decision to allow Harry Kane to leave the football club with obviously, of course, a year left on his contract, the poster boy? Are the 30 goals, which you look at his career consistently over the last 7-8 seasons that he gets, worth more than 100 million? Let's go to you, Frank, then we'll come on to Ant.
Well, the argument is, do we keep him for another year and not get a fee for him, let him go for free, possibly to another Premier League club? Or do we sell him now for? I think it's 85 million plus add-ons. Yeah, so it's that's the conundrum. So I suppose from a business perspective, you take the money and you move on because there will always be a day at some point where we have to think about life without Kane. But going back to the media and particularly the German media and how they've been sort of pushing the narrative of getting Kane out of Spurs, there isn't any smoke without fire, as the saying goes. So that's obviously partly to do with Kane's team. They've obviously been encouraging that because one of his representatives or himself, they haven't come out and squashed the rumours and said, look, we disagree with the way that the German media and Bayern are going about this. I think it was, who is it? Was it Rummenigge, who's been very outspoken as well?
Yeah.
Or one of the ex-players. So all of this is, in my opinion, okay. So it's been encouraged somewhat by Kane's entourage team, his brother, his agent. So he wants to leave. And from Harry Kane's perspective, it's another rebuild. I mean, how many times has he been here before with Spurs? You know, a new manager, a new rebuild, a new project. The guy just wants to win. He's, in my opinion, the best striker of his generation. He's the best all-round striker in the world. I'm talking about doing everything. He could play in midfield. He could, because he's that good. He has that range of passing and that ability and technical ability. So you're talking about a generational talent, and he wants to leave. So so go on.
Go on, brother.
No, I was going to say, from Daniel Levy's perspective, yeah, it's his fault because he's let Kane down. He hasn't built the team around Kane that's capable of challenging for the Premier League or at least winning trophies. So he has to take the responsibility for that. But he probably has to sell now. As Ramon said, it's a lot of money. If Kane's going to go next summer for free, he could go to Chelsea, he could go to Manchester City. That would hurt more. So he'd probably have to sell him.
I think, guys, we need to be realistic. And I think for Harry's point of view, listen, we were very lucky as a club to have had him. It's as simple as that, you know. And if he leaves the Premier League, we're even more lucky because he's not going to do it damage against us, you know, in the future. So that's one thing you need to look into this. But at the same time, you know, listen, I think for the player, he can walk with heads up out of that club without a problem. Okay, nobody would complain. A single thing, you know. This is now really kind of realistic business decision. Not even a question mark. This is now for the club. He's done well for the club. Now he's doing well for him to get some money out of him. If he goes, simple as that. And for Harry, he will go to a club, a massive club, where potentially can definitely win something domestic for certain. Maybe even going to the Champions League. He's going to play the Champions League. That's important part, and maybe even potentially win that. So I think it's a win-win formula for the club and for Harry Kane. So if it was Danny Levy in this case, there's not even a question mark. If the right offer is there and he can close it, do it next week as soon as possible, because with that money we can actually get some centre backs and potentially also some young potential new striker which need to be done as well. So the sooner that saga is done, the better for the club.
But do you think we've left it 2-3 years too late?
I went too late.
I come back to the planning side.
Yeah,
I always said, what's
exactly.
that?
Exactly.
Yeah, I've always said, I used to get shot down when I used to come on the show, Rick, and Frank can back me up. Right, we need a replacement for Kane if and when he goes. He ain't going. Who's going to sit on the bench? I used to see comments. He ain't going to go. Kane's the best person in the world, best player. Who's going to come striker? We were the only team for 2 or 3 seasons with one registered striker. One, right? This is supposed to be a top 4 or 5 club. One. Now, once Kane goes next week, for example, we're going to have another one striker in terms of Mr. Richarlison, who the pressure is going to be even more for him. If there was someone coming in that we bought in 2-3 seasons ago to play alongside Kane, so Kane can drop back, give us a different dimension of play, we'd be like, you know what, Kane, thank you so much. You've been a great servant. We love you. Go and do what you got to do, my friend. But now he's going to go next week. We're going to be scrambling around. Are we getting 2 centre backs? Are we going to get a centre back and an attacking midfielder? Are we going to get a striker? Are we going to get a winger? Are we going to get another goalkeeper? There's no planning, man. There's nothing.
Do you know what else, Sam?
Scramble.
We haven't exactly shown intent. We haven't actually shown intent to Kane, in a sense that regardless of what you think of it, I'm not making judgment here, by the way. Our number one goalkeeping target was David Raya. Now, whether or not he's worth 40 million, I'm saying we didn't buy him. We didn't buy any centre backs. So from Kane's perspective, now looking at it, particularly over the last 10 days or so, he's probably thinking, they're not exactly showing me that this club in the next sort of 2 to 3 years, because he's 30 now, he's probably got 4 or 5 years left at the top, maybe a little bit longer because he keeps himself very fit. and lives a very clean life. But he's probably thinking they're not showing me the relevant and requisite intent needed for me to win the biggest of trophies at Spurs. So I want to leave, and it's heartbreaking. Anyone that's remotely happy or accepting that Kane's going to go this summer without winning anything at Spurs
I don't think it's happy, buddy, but I think it's a case of, I come to the question. We've lost Modric, Bale, Waddle, Hoddle, Teddy. What was it like when Teddy left, Ramon? Did the mood change? Was everyone down about it? Was everyone like, okay, it's a new lease of life? These things happen. It's football. But my point is the fact that we haven't had a replacement or a second striker that's been playing 10, 15 games last season to replace Kane. It's just Kane. Even when Kane's got a bad leg, he's still got to play because it's Kane. Do you know what I mean? We have to.
You're absolutely correct, Tony. There, absolutely correct. And I've been saying that for years as well. It's already 4 or 5 years. I mean, coming back again, whatever outside from football pitch has been done well. Right, the opposite is done on the football pitch. On the recruitment side point of view, the board was done awfully, just terribly. There was no consistency in terms of the recruitment point of view. That's why they are where they are at this situation with Harry Kane. Harry Kane's situation could be done way much longer beyond that. If he saw 3-4 years ago there was a potential another second or third striker will compete with him, he will completely, maybe he will score more potentially. But as you say, Tony, I said 4 or 5 years ago, we got only one striker. If he's injured, we're done. We're completely done. Simple as that. Yeah. But nobody will say, he will be always there. But the problem is there was no planning at any time the last 4 to 5 years, whatsoever. Now, they're in a situation now, rock bottom, actually beyond that, to be honest with you. They've got one of the best players, our strikers in Europe, potentially most likely leaving for free if he doesn't sign, if he doesn't sell. And they don't have a potential even a replacement.
Can I ask Ramon, though, the club may argue, and again, guys, don't shout me down for saying this, the club might argue they may have already been pre-planning and they may have got Richarlison for that reason and spent 60 million on a striker because they felt Richarlison in a year's time after a full season at Tottenham could be the man. But I want to ask you, Ramon, from what you've seen of Richarlison so far in a Tottenham shirt, and again, for those attackers around him,
one striker.
You're right, Ant. No, you're right. You're right. It is still one striker. But Ramon, can we get by? That's a really silly word because Tottenham as a football club, when they're the 9th richest club in the world, should not be getting by. They should not be having to make do. And I'm not trying to justify this, but do you think, Ramon, Richarlison is enough with the attackers around him to compensate for the loss of Harry Kane or not?
Not at all. He's not enough. Absolutely not. Richarlison is a completely different striker in terms of attitude, character, point of view. Not enough at all. Simple as that. We need at least 1 or 2 other ones to join if Harry Kane will live to it. It's absolutely not enough at all. We saw already him. He was not happy himself with the season because he didn't play as much either in the same time. He didn't perform in the same time. So he took also a while to, as I said before, players take a while to integrate into the squad, until they're playing well. But at the same time, if you're only just having him, we need to have another 2 as well. So it's definitely not enough. Yes, there was a sign last year with him. There's a potential replacement for Harry Kane. But that was last year, Ricky. We are talking now 4 years back. We can't just act last year. 4 years, that means, or even more, I would say even back to 5 years. It's 3 years. In one stage, I think we've not even done anything whatsoever.
Ramon, tell me
that transfer period is hugely missing now because
I totally agree. Yeah,
football is changing so fast, and competitors are very quick in taking these players on board. So they're getting more expensive in the same time. If you not act decisively and planned, it's like everything. You're going to spend either premium or last minute, whatever you get.
Ramon, look, you've been around the football club in the period that you was at the club, and I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, you may have crossed the path where Teddy was leaving the football club? Or even, like I say, if I ask you to compare with other clubs that you've been at when the club loses the star player, other than you leaving, of course. other than you leaving the football club.
Listen, mate, I went to Celtic to win the treble, all right? Sorry,
yeah,
guys.
Yeah, no, we know.
Sorry, mate.
I can't believe it. We're bringing Ramon Vega on. He's trolling us. Jeez,
No, really,
where's this club at?
Treble, you know, I
see what goes on?
improved myself, you know. I went to the penthouse, you know.
The former players come on, they troll Tottenham. That's what we've come to. Ramon, I want to ask you, look, from that perspective, how does the dressing room deal when the star player, I say, I jokingly as someone you leave, how do they cope? Do you expect Ange will be able to get those players together? Do you think it's also Ramon, worth asking you this? Is this not helping Ange at all? Because this whole situation, this is how I feel most I feel unfair this on Ange, this whole thing that he has had 6-7 weeks of not knowing if the star striker is going to be here, whilst meanwhile also the captain of the football club in Hugo Lloris, whatever you think about Hugo, he's going as well. So Ramon, how do you think he's going to adapt and deal with this situation, in your opinion?
Well, I think Ange's point of view, that's the luck we have, because he has a character and experience in such situations, because he's been dealing in many other clubs with even lower budget than potentially Spurs, you know, and potentially even a similar situation. The captain, the star team may have to go, and he has to potentially not count him for the next season. So he has this experience. So I think it was Ange's point of view. Now, of course, for him, it's frustration not to know if Harry Kane is not there, but I think he calculated in that already within his planning. If he's in, it's a huge bonus. But if he's not, he has to continue without Harry Kane. So I think from Ange's point of view, he's definitely professional about it, and he will handle that professional. He will know that that's the case, okay? And most likely the board might tell him, listen, think about without him already in your mind and your plans and potentially your squad and the way you're playing. But if he's there, he's there. So I think from Ange's point of view, I'm not too worried about it. He will panicking because I think this is the beauty we have. He's an experienced manager in terms of such a situation. And this is kind of the pathetic side point of view. We're talking about a big club and we're talking about budget club. What are we, a big club or a budget club? Do you know what I mean? So you see where I'm coming from, Ricky? You know, everybody's talking about the big club, but then we're talking about the budget club. No, but we're not spending. So what are we? So we are looking now with Ange like a budget club, because he knows how to deal with a very limited budget to get the potential, the best out of the team, you know. But at the same time, we are still Spurs. So we're kind of a big conflict there, interpretation. Are we a big club or not? If we are a budget club, then we are a middle club. That's simple as that, you know. But I think from point of Ange, I'm not too worried about it. I think I'm more worried about the board, how they're going to really support him now in the next 3 to 6 weeks. That's my worry, because he's done the last 4 or 5 years terribly.
Yep.
How they're gonna what would change now in the next 3 to 6 weeks? You can't just catch up 4 years or 5 years of terrible transfer or who you're dealing with, etc. So that my concern is how the board really gonna manage these, and that's one of the major concerns I think at the club at the moment, because that's one of the key. I think the Spurs fans has to look into this as well in the future. If this club has to move forward, the board really, really needs to improve massively on how to manage that club. Not in terms of managing financially, they've done it very well. I think I'm not too worried about that. But you know what? I think a lot of people will manage at that level as well, because it's infrastructure, it's property. But the football club is a football club. It's all about football players, the managers, the squad. And that's the complexity where people very much underestimate in a football club. How to manage the football side point of view, how to manage the human side point of view of the players to attract it. It's not the money. Listen, money doesn't buy success. Look at Chelsea. They got in trouble. They spent 600 million quid on January. What did they got into it? They have to fire sell pretty much now the whole summer to get the balance, you know? So money doesn't count. It's pretty much knowledge, experience, and network within the industry. These are the 3 factors needs to happen within Spurs. And if they don't improve that, then the board most likely, has to think to resign and get a really, really proper management team in place.
Yeah, I'm conscious, Ramon. You're in Dubai, meant to be on a holiday, and I'm draining you with Tottenham, so we won't keep you for too much longer. And again, for the rest of you guys, poor bloke, he's on holiday and he's doing Spurs for an hour and a half. Can you imagine how drained he must feel?
I'm already trained, mate.
Honestly, what a top man. Frank, look.
50 Celsius, we got 50 Celsius and the humidity.
Oh, shush.
Is it raining by you?
Yeah.
No, it is. It's raining. It's hammering it down with rain.
Just get the umbrella out.
Frank, you seem fairly adamant that deal will be done with Harry Kane. I just want to ask you how you feel we'll move forward if Tottenham do sell Harry Kane, and how you expect it's hard to ask you this because you're not going to speak for every fan. How do you expect the majority of fans to react to this deal if it does get done next week?
With outrage, because it's the context behind why he's leaving, because the club have failed to put together a winning team around him in his prime years. So this is the issue. Now, personally, I think obviously I'd much prefer him to stay. He's world class. I think that without him, perhaps it allows Ange to just completely start again from a clean slate with a rebuild. It'd be better with Harry Kane in the squad, of course, but at least we won't have the media trying to sell him every summer, every January, even in between windows. It always seems that the British media are happy to sell one of the best players we've got, the England captain, and happy to put pressure on him to go abroad, which I find strange, but that's another conversation for another day. But yeah, the fans rightly will be angry because of the factors that we've just spoken of, such as ticket prices going up, no European football, and selling the best player that you've had certainly in the last 50 years for the club. All of that, it's a recipe for disaster. So how do you justify that? But I think personally, if it was me, I would go and get the two centre backs and buy Ivan Toney. We'll have Richarlison until January. Then when Tony's back, put him straight back into the squad. That would be personally what I would do. And I think it gives us a fresh start to go and be a pressing team. For all of Harry Kane's strengths, which there are many, the one weakness he has is he doesn't press anymore. He doesn't. It's not in his makeup. He hasn't got the legs for it. So we will see a completely different Tottenham. But I expect, and quite rightly so, that the mood amongst the fan base to be anger. As we've just seen, by the way, whilst we've been doing the show, the deal for Mane to leave Bayern Munich has just been made official. So that's where they've got the extra money to top up for the deal. And yeah, I'm adamant, Rick, because as I said, I've been told it's happening first and foremost. And you don't meet with the club CEO. You don't have this meeting that's been arranged for tomorrow just to have a chat about a player. If you have a meeting, it's to negotiate a deal. So it's going to get done. I've heard it's going to be announced on Tuesday. And, Tottenham Hotspur Football Club moves on. But I just hope that I hope it's not toxic for Ange. I understand that fans will, if they want to protest, if there's anger at the beginning of the next season, I totally get that. It's justified. But I just hope that the fans give Ange a chance. I think that his style of football is exactly what Tottenham need. And it's synonymous with Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. But I just really hope that we give him time.
It's Ramon, I come to you and we'll go to Anne. There's obviously this fee being banned around at the moment that Bayern are likely to offer around a 75 million mark. And that's going to be met with caveats and clauses that are only payable if Kane delivers on all fronts. He wins on the Champions League, Bundesliga individual awards. I know what Frank has said there, that you don't meet if you're not going to get the deal done. But surely, Ramon, the price has to be right. I can't imagine Daniel Levy is not going into this meeting if he's not looking, in my opinion only, to get some form of a British record sale. We saw Declan Rice, I think, leave for 105 million. Knowing Daniel loves a first in terms of looking to get a higher fee, do you think, Ramon, he would still sell cut price to Bayern Munich, or do you think he will get a fee that warrants enough money to go and smash the rest of this transfer window in the areas that we've discussed? Centre half, possibly a replacement striker. How do you see that meeting playing out, Ramon, on Monday, which would be for a lot of our listeners on audio, listening back to this on the commute?
Well, it's a dilemma for Daniel Levy for certain, because in terms of negotiation power, I'm not so sure he's on a kind of the right way in terms of stronger position because, as I say, he can leave in January and sign off for the summer for free. So he hasn't got zero negotiations power there to demand massively. Okay. Now, in the same time, he's trying to get maximum price out there. Now, it's a 30 years old player. We know that's 30 years old. Okay. So we need to consider that as well. Even maybe have another 3 to 4, 5 years. Now, to try to maximize the top price within the Premier League transfer, I think that will be a little bit exaggerating at this point now, realistically. All right. Now, the 70 million plus mark, it's a more realistic kind of price for such a player, without a question. I think if it was Daniel, knowing Harry Kane, he will definitely score massively for Bayern Munich. I will have the major ads on, because that will continue to pay for the next 3 to 4, 5 years. They Bayern Munich, because then if he wins the Champions League or the Bundesliga, or he scores 20 plus goals in Bundesliga for certain, I'll tell you what now, he will get to the 100 plus million pounds over a period of time. But he will not get a front where he wants it, but he will try to maximize the front payment, but it adds on. So I think he will play more the adds on, how strong the adds on Bayern Munich side will give him. And if he's doing that, then he's doing a good job, because then he has money for the next few seasons as well as coming in. Because for certain, Harry Kane will score at Bayern Munich, because that's the reason they're bringing him as well, you know.
And let me come to you. I don't know if you ever truly thought there was a time when I was going to ask you on Last Word on Spurs about Tottenham ever selling Harry Kane. I don't know if that ever registered in your brain that was ever going to happen. It certainly, I'll be honest, hasn't ever registered in my mind that under Daniel Levy, we would sell Harry Kane. I honestly was of the opinion that Spurs would probably allow, well, I thought Harry would see out the final 12 months. And again, I have to agree with friend of the show, Ali Gold, that none of this to me makes a lot of sense, apart from the fact Spurs can attract themselves a big figure that they can't do in 12 months' time. Harry in 12 months and has got the freedom to go wherever he wants to go. He could go to Chelsea and join Poch. That would kill us, of course. He could go to Manchester United. He could go to Man City, maybe, if Haaland ends up going to Real Madrid. Do you understand the obsession, Anne, about moving this window? Is it the fear of being injured? Is it the fear of missing out on guaranteed trophies? What is it, Anne, that's really pushing this in your mind that he has to leave this window, in your opinion?
Wow. I think for him, he's got to a stage where we've alluded to it a lot of times over the years in this show. He wants to win trophies. Some people might argue it, but no, he wants to break Shearer's record. For me, that's a great record to have, and rightly so. But you can't beat having a trophy in your a trophy winner's medal in your house, or you know what I mean. I think he's had opportunities though. Let's not get it twisted. He's had opportunities over the years. Maybe some of the teams he played with weren't the best, but he has had opportunities. So I think it is his time to go. I hate saying it. I hate being negative about that, but it is, football moves on. Tottenham Hotspur will always be here. You know, we've lost the likes of Gaza, Klinsmann over the years. You know, Berber, Bale came out of nowhere, so to speak. But football moves on. Of course, I'm going to be upset if it is this week, as Frank alluded to. But you know, we've got to crack on. We've got a season to start. As
a fan, Anne, in your opinion, has he tarnished his legacy in any way by going there?
But to Bayern Munich?
Yeah. Has he tarnished his legacy in any way?
Not at all. I think the legacy would be to another London club, i.e., Pochettino at Chelsea. I think a lot of fans...
And it's a hard question for you to answer this. Why could he have not given it 12 months to see if he was really enjoying the brand of football under Postecoglou? Spurs, dare I say, win a League Cup or an FA Cup. Why could that have not happened? Could it still happen?
It could happen. I mean, listen, things could change so quickly.
Yep.
This is football. But
of course,
if we're talking as if he's gone now. I think he's got to a point where he's had, he's had enough. He's given his all to this club, and I think it's time to move on. And if he does, I wish him all the best, and hopefully see you in a couple of years' time, mate. Once you've won a few medals, once you've won a few trophies.
That was going to be my next question.
It must drive him mad. Just quickly, Rick. It must drive him mad that all the media talk about, and in football circles they speak about Harry Kane not winning anything, You know, when he goes and plays with his international teammates, some of the players there
Yeah.
have just won a treble. They've all won something. You look at the nucleus of that England squad. Even Declan Rice now has gone and won a trophy. He's the only one, and he's the best player. He's the captain. That must irk him to be a genuine, bona fide, world-class striker, breaking records, that he hasn't a single trophy to his name. That must eat him alive, because he's a winner. We've seen the overlap interview with Gary Neville. We've heard him speak about, I want to win the biggest trophies in football, and he hasn't won one, and he's just turned 30.
But lads,
You know, as you say, one big injury and it's all over, you know.
But this badge, it's all about the badge, lads. You know, it kills me to be that person, but football moves on.
I mean, the thing is, we have been linked, of course, with the Bayern starlet Matthias Tell. It screams and stinks of the Fraser Campbell. As we know, saga with Berbatov and Manchester United. I can see Ramon racing down there to come back in. Ramon, come back in for us on this. Come on, Ramon.
Hi. Just want to comment on Frank in terms of he's desperate, of course, winning a trophy to his teammates in the English squad. Yes. Let's not forget Frank. It's not he didn't have the chance to do it.
Of course, and I'm not denying that. And so, you could say that his record in semi-finals and finals has been poor. Of course.
You're in finals, and that's what counts most of everything, because that's a one-off game, 90 minutes, maybe 120, let's call it, okay? And not 30 goals at the season. It's that one game who makes strikers the biggest name. Maybe they didn't do anything in the other seasons, but look at Toto Schillaci. He's done nothing in the Serie A. He scores the winning goal for the World Cup. He wins the World Cup and it's done.
It's
He's
mad,
forever
isn't it?
It's done.
It's like in '99, Alan Nielsen. Alan Nielsen will always be remembered for scoring that winning goal. Yeah.
We need to be also kind of appreciate massively the player, because from talent point of view, it's not even a question mark. Unbelievable he's done in terms of goals and everything else. But he needs to add on that he on
moments.
He has to make now. He is the next level of player, because now, yes, he's top scorer, Premier League / obviously Spurs the highest at the moment, of course. But now he has to show that he can actually win international trophies or any trophy at this point. And I think he deserves to go to a team. He might has that better chance than potentially Spurs. But saying that, at Spurs, he had the chance to do it.
I hope he does well. I really, really do.
He had the chance to do it. So it's not like
he did. And
the chance to do it. If you're telling me we didn't do anything else, I would say, sorry, mate. The guy, he really has to really go, because he's never going to do anything with Spurs in terms of winning. But he had the chance to do it. And that's where
you look at,
he needed to play strength to do it. But football at the same time, I can't really blame him in 90 minutes, not going to do it. But that's where you distinguish yourself, mega top or just top.
It's moments, isn't it, in football, in the biggest games. And I think you compare him to Drogba, Didier Drogba. He was the biggest big game player in recent years in the Premier League and Cup finals. He always done it when it mattered and had those moments. And you could argue that Kane hasn't. But, you know, sometimes he can't do it all himself. You know, he's been a talisman for many years, and it'd be nice if others sort of around him could have sort of carried him through some of those moments, perhaps. But, you know, he leaves with his head held high. You can't begrudge him. I think that he'll always be remembered fondly at Spurs. I don't think there's a single fan who would criticise this move. As Ramon said, Bayern are a huge club. Regardless of the Bundesliga not being what the Premier League is now, Bayern are huge. They're one of the true juggernauts of world football. So he's going to one of the biggest clubs in the world.
Guys, I want to ask you one final question each to close it. It's been honestly an unbelievable show. Lots of love for you all here. Ramon, they're going crazy for you. Demanding you're back for more.
Look at that, Rick. Sorry, Rick. Did you just
on holiday, mate? Rick, you took me out of holidays, you know?
I'm so sorry, Ramon.
Rick, did you just see that stat?
Listen, always fans, Spurs, always, anytime. No problem.
You're a top man. We're going to ask you all one final question. Frank, look, you've been adamant in your opinion and mine that this deal will get done. It's a $1 million question, Frank. A lot of Spurs fans will want to know. And again, you are great at delivering what we feel is the right answers at the moment. Frank, will that money be spent wisely once Harry departs the club, in your opinion? That's a really difficult question.
Oh.
And I'm so sorry to ask you this, mate, because at some point you'll be coming back with us on here. Difficult question, I suppose, to ask you.
You could probably say more recent times, the recruitment's been a bit better since Paratic's involvement. Bentancur, Kulusevski, we paid the premium for Porro. He was very sought after in Europe. We wanted him. Madison's a great signing. Romero, we signed when we had Nuno and Conference League football. So the recruitment has got better from where it was in sort of 2019, 2020, and 2021, around that sort of time. So I don't know. Anything can happen with Enoch and Daniel Levy driving the car that's Tottenham. I don't know, Rick, the answer to that question. I sincerely hope that we spend it wisely, but I don't know. I can't answer that question.
Frank, I can't believe probably the next time you're on a Last One on Spurs show, Harry Kane is not a Tottenham player. Honestly, that hasn't registered with me. Frank, has it settled in for you yet? Will it sink in? Just very quickly on this, Frank.
No, not for a little while. He's Mr. Tottenham. Part of our global reach that we've established in recent years, particularly the last few years, is to do with him. I mentioned to you I was on a corporate night out not so long ago, and there was a Russian lady there who is based in Madrid, and her husband's a massive Harry Kane fan. She asked me, where can I get a Tottenham shirt with Harry Kane on it? That's what she wanted. So he's part of that global reach that we have because of who he is, his image. He's the England captain. He's world class. So to lose him, we'll be losing a bit of the club's soul, unfortunately. We will. He's the best player that we've had for many years, over a consistent period. And it's heartbreaking, Rick. But what can we do? You know, if he wants to go, what can we do?
Come on, come back in there.
Yeah, just going to Frank. I think one of the reasons also Bayern is doing a 30 years old major transaction like that, because don't forget, if you follow the Bayern's transfers and philosophy of Bayern Munich, you don't see that kind of level of money for a 30 years old. They always go to much younger, around the 24, 25, maximum 26 years old. Okay, for them to go that level for a 30 years old striker, it's an enormous step for Bayern Munich. Ever done, actually, be honest with you, historically, by the way, okay? And they're a very shrewd, well-organized club, financially as well, in all parts, even football-wise. Football-wise, I would say, when I deal with them, pretty much every single position within the club are either ex-players or been with Bayern Munich managing for the last 30, 40 years, okay? So you can see they have the DNA of Bayern Munich, they have the knowledge, they have the football knowledge as well, and the network. So that combines a very strong position. But what they're doing now here, and there's a part of the Bundesliga deal as well, like the Premier League used to do 10 years ago, 15 years ago, with foreign players to come into it, is to attract the attractivity of the Bundesliga to a different level. And Harry Kane, as you say, Frank, is a global kind of brand, English captain, etc. And that's one of the kind of the other part within that deal of Bayern Munich is in play with the Bundesliga to make sure the Bundesliga has a certain attractivity worldwide as well. So he plays that game as well. So I think it's a competition now between the Premier Leagues, Bundesliga, La Liga, I think Serie A as well. Each one that are competing now for the TV rights, who's getting the most out of it. And I think these are the moves being done in the next few years, if you can see it, you know. Don't forget, Saudi Arabia, as we see now, is massively pumping money into the system for whatever reason, or good reason or bad reason, but they're doing not different than what Premier League used to do 10, 15 years ago. That should be potential Harry Kane in the future. So Bayern Munich to say, well, in 4 years' time, they might resell it to Saudi. That's something Daniel Levy has to look into as well, a resale clause.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I was going to ask you, Ant, to come to you, then close it on Ramon. And do you think Harry Kane will come back and be a Spurs player again? Maybe potentially after winning a few trophies with Bayern. It sounds ridiculous, isn't it? It's almost nature getting him. Well, isn't it mad? I'm asking you this question. It's mad, isn't it? This is what we're like as football fans. What do you feel?
I can see them doing maybe a deal down the line, 33, 34, come back for a year or so, you know, and then maybe break the record of the Premier League and then retire. I don't know. I'm just dreaming. But all I've got to say is, lads, it's been an absolute joy to watch Harry Kane play for our club. He's been unbelievable, as we all know. He's broken records left, right, and centre. Always been criticised for I don't know why, from other fans of other clubs and stuff. But that's cool. We love you, Harry, mate. And you go to Bayern, man. Do what you got to do. Come back. But I will end on this. No one is bigger than that badge. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
Tottenham will always be here, guys and girls and everyone. So we love you, mate, and good luck to you. And it's been a pleasure being on the show.
Despite what Ramon tells you about Celtic.
Yeah, Celtic was another. I mean, like, he has to throw that in. He won the treble.
Yeah. Ramon, final one I'm going to ask you to close it on. What is your opinion on what is success for Tottenham under Ange Postecoglou this season? What in your mind would be successful with your Tottenham hat on as to a decent season that would appease the fans, in your opinion?
It would be a success for him, considering the situation, and the next 2-3 weeks might change it. Obviously, with Harry Kane, might move as well. I think qualify for Europe would be a relative good success, I would say, considering
Europa League or Champions League, one of those two.
I don't think Champions League at the moment. That would be stretching. You need to have you never know with Angie, because you never know. But in the same time, I'm not seeing Champions League at this point, Spurs now, this year. This year is really kind of putting the dots into it, put the kind of the players in mood into it. If we qualify for Europe, that's already a good step. And then really have a very good another transfer period next year, where then potentially the Champions League might come in place. But this year, I think it would be a stretch, realistically, to be honest with you, from where we're coming, where we're heading, and what we're having changing in the next 3 to 6 weeks. I would say Europe qualification, and potentially, you never know, a domestic League Cup or something like that. I mean, might be. The good thing about this now, with Angie, he has more time for the team because he hasn't got too many European kind of matches during the midweek, so he has more time, more preparation for this team to go into really focusing for the Premier League, number one. Number two, with all the domestic cups as well, the FA Cup and the League Cup. So that might be a potential aim, the winning the League Cup.
It's going to be interesting, Ramon, isn't it? It really, really is. Frank, I want to say a massive thank you, mate. I think given the nature of where Spurs are and what they might be about to do in terms of the striker and the mood around the fan base, this is a difficult show to come on to, but as always, mate, lots of love for you out there. So, Frank, thank you so much. You'll be back with us during the season for your sins, mate. Maybe Harry Kane-less. So sorry, Frank.
Yeah, I think I'm back for the Arsenal game. I don't know why I've picked that game.
No, you're mad.
Yeah, I know. But no, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to do the show. I would do it more if I could. It's a pleasure to do it with an ex-player like Ramon, who speaks freely, which is what this is about. You know, we don't like to sort of prohibit anything. It's no hold bars. So thank you for having me on, Rick. Pleasure to do it with my good friend Ant as well. And thank you very much for everyone tuning in, listening, watching, and making the show what it is. Because without the listeners, there would be no last word on Spurs. Yeah, absolutely, mate. Thank you so much. And oh man, what a difficult show to do. I mean, I think we all said before, it's going to be one of those shows. And when Ramon loaded up the Wi-Fi, I think we all know what kind of show it was going to be. It's been topsy-turvy where, again, we've got to say, look, a lot remains still to be answered in this next week or so. But I think you've said it numerous times tonight. And one thing I think we can all agree with as a fan base, if not anything, is that, as you have rightly said consistently throughout the show, the badge is bigger than any player and anyone, right? And
yeah, absolutely. You know, I just think we just got to move on, and I keep coming to the point of planning. I don't want us scrambling around. There should be a plan in place if or when he does depart this fantastic, amazing club that we support. And let's see what happens, mate. Because I'm crossing everything, fingers, toes, everything, man.
Well, mate, thank you so much. You will be back
Love
for
you
your
lot.
sins as well. Lots of love to you, mate, as well. Ramon, can I just say, mate, a massive, massive thank you. This was obviously a very last-minute show that we proposed to make happen. And so much so, you can see Ramon has tried his best tonight for us to sort his wife out in Dubai. Ramon, there's people out there, I think Dubai Spurs saying you've got an invite to the next game. Dare I say, you might want to either watch or listen to that, given the nature of it. But Ramon, thank you so much. And an opportunity for you to say, obviously, where can a lot of Spurs fans still catch you and find you in the nature of, obviously, you still talking about Tottenham, because that's what you do still so well. Not only did you play at Spurs and win a trophy, you also talk ever so well about where we are at the moment with the football club. And I'm trying to talk as much as I can to see if we can free up Ramon's Wi-Fi before he does answer, which is a failing task at the moment. I feel so bad that we've had so much of Ramon's time. And as we go to say goodbye, the Wi-Fi is...
He's gone. Oh, he's gone.
This is the reaction of Spurs letting Harry Kane go. What a shame. I've got to say, it's... Good. It's got to say, it's
like
been a really
keyboard.
Is that the reaction after selling Harry Kane?
Nothing will beat the show. Why is it always me and Frank are on shows with you and everything goes wrong? Do you remember with Bridgie
with curses? Yeah. And do you remember his father-in-law was drunk as well? Do you know, he kept coming in and disturbing him.
Me and Frank are the Spursy guests, co-hosts.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
It's fair to say, look, guys, whatever happens in these next couple of weeks, we are in for a really roller coaster of a season under Ange Postecoglou. But then we were told it was going to be a crazy train. Ramon, we're going to finish with you. You've got an invite to Dubai Spurs whenever you've got a chance, if you want to visit them for the next games. Ramon, thank you so much. Where can we find your opinions on Tottenham these days? We always love them.
Ricky, well, first of all, thanks. Always welcome to come to this show. Always a pleasure. You need to deal with my wife because she's waiting for 2 hours for my dinner. Just for this show, you know.
We love legend.
You bring Ramon's wife, bring her in.
You're reading the bad books, you know, with my wife. I'll tell you that now. But
don't worry about it. I'm used to being in the bad books with Mrs. Don't worry about it. I've got my own problems, trust me.
So now, listen, guys. It's always a pleasure to talk about Spurs. You know that. That's not even a question about. But most important one, we need to be very straight and realistic how it is. You know, people sometimes talk around it. You know, I think it's key that everybody knows where we're standing. You know, I think some of the Spurs supporters now needs to be more united. What I see here, we are completely all over the place. We are not a united Spurs in terms of real thing. But at the same time, I can't really blame them because the board doesn't really help either by these tickets increase. And one thing they really need to do, get these tickets down as soon as possible before the season starts. And if I have to say it, I will say it again, and I will tell them, if I have to ring up Daniel, I will tell Daniel as well. That's not a big deal for me. You know, I just speak to him about it. Because I think it will make sense in terms of where the club is, but also will give a little bit the club the communication between the fans and the empathy. The empathy, that's the part one missing within this club, you know. And if that's not there, then we are a very cold club.
Agree. I think that's the right point to end it on. Frank, massive, massive thank you. Lots of love for you. Same for Anne. And Ramon, thank you so much, guys, for all your love and support for the show. As Frank says, without the viewers and listeners, there is no last one on Spurs. But look, as Ant says as well, the badge is the most important thing. For more at last one on Spurs, please keep safe, keep well. We'll be back to you very, very soon. And as always, come on, you Spurs.